Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Writing Theatre, the show where we unravel stories behind influential figures shaping the media world, freedom of expression, and literature. I am Hannah KUNUJI, and joining me today is my co-host.
BELLO HIQMAT. Absolutely. Today's episode promises to be insightful and inspiring. But before we dive in, let's take a short break.
Welcome back. Today, we are here with a remarkable guest who has been at the forefront of promoting media freedom in Nigeria. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Edetaen Ojo, the Executive Director of Media Rights Agenda.
Thank you very much. It's great to be on your show.
Mr. Ojo, before the break, we were discussing your journey into advocacy. Can you share with us how you became actively involved in promoting freedom of expression, media freedom, and access to information?
Well, I started my career as a journalist during the period of military rule. And as you can imagine, that was a very difficult time in journalism practice in Nigeria. We faced a lot of challenges from the military with respect to violations of human rights, not just of the general society, but also of media practitioners. So as I continued to do the job, it occurred to me that we needed to address the challenges to media freedom and freedom of expression in the country. And at that time also, I was doing a lot of coverage of the judiciary, the courts, human rights cases. And I became quite close to a lot of human rights defenders, the Chief Ganifa Miss Olisa Agbakobas, Femi Falana, and so on. And that really spiked my interest in doing human rights work, especially with respect to the media and media freedom. So over the years, I made a transition. Initially, I was doing both, continuing to do my work as a reporter. But after a while, the volume of work became so much that I had to completely transit into doing media defense and media freedom work. And this was in the late 70s, in the late 90s. I made the switch completely in 1997.
Sir, given your role at Media Rights Agenda, could you give our viewers an overview of the current state of media rights in Nigeria?
Well, unfortunately, I hate to say it's not really improved significantly. I think the challenges have evolved over the years because also of the way that the nature of communication has changed, the nature of governance has changed, but also fundamentally technology has changed. So when I started media practice, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have mobile phones in Nigeria. So it's difficult now to imagine that era when there were no mobile phones, there was no internet, there was no email. But as the technology changed, we started to face challenges in the online environment as well. And then also, at some point in 1999, we transited from military rule to democratic rule. We had thought that democracy would make it easier for journalists to practice, but unfortunately, that has proved not to be the case. So right now, we have a continuing difficulty for journalists across a range of issues. When we do the analysis of, for instance, the number of journalists that have been killed over the years, we find that by far more journalists have been killed in the course of their work under democratic rule than during the period of military rule, which is quite ironic. Uh, During the period of military rule, the military mostly used detention, so they could lock you up indefinitely for months, perhaps even years. But under a democratic system of government, that is difficult because journalists would immediately go to court and challenge their detention. So it appears that more and more journalists face other forms of attacks, including killing. And the figures show that the number of journalists who have been arrested, who are beaten up, whose equipment are seized and smashed, continue to go up. And then, of course, the environment also is not easier for getting information. So one of the things we had done in the late 90s was to promote a freedom of information bill in the hope that the existence of such a law would make it easier for journalists to get information. It took a long time for the National Assembly to pass the Freedom of Information Bill into law. That finally happened in 2011. But we find that the existence of the Freedom of Information Act has not really made it easier for journalists and other members of society to get information. So the challenges remain ongoing. We're also trying to strengthen the legal and policy framework for access to information, for journalism practice, for enhancing the safety of journalists, and so on. And there's been some progress made, but the practice and the reality continue to be extremely challenging, as well as the economic environment.
Sir, your advocacy for freedom of information is noteworthy. Can you share some key milestones and challenges in your journey to promote access to information?
Well, in terms of milestones, this was something we started thinking about during the period of military rule, that it would be good to have a law which gives everyone the right of access to information. So through various consultative processes, we drafted a Freedom of Information bill, which in 1999, as soon as democratic rule was restored, we presented that to the National Assembly in July of 1999, and that began its journey through the National Assembly. It was first passed in 2007. At that time, President Obasanjo was in charge. He was president of Nigeria, but he refused to assent to it. He refused to sign it into law. So although the National Assembly had passed it, it did not become law. So when President Obasanjo left and President Yaradua took over, we started that journey afresh. And ultimately, the bill was passed again in 2011. By this time, President Goodluck Jonathan was now in charge, and he signed it into law on the 28th of May, 2011. So effectively from that day, Nigerians had a legal right of access to information. But that did not automatically change everything. A number of challenges remained. One of them was ignorance of a large number of the population about the existence of the law and how to use it. But there was also a culture of secrecy that had developed within government during the period of military rule and since then. So we have continued to try and promote the use of the law, trying to do awareness raising among different stakeholder groups, media practitioners, journalists, government officials, and other members of the society. Also to build capacity about how to use the law for routine reporting, for investigative reporting, and so on and so forth. So I would say that increasingly we are seeing some slight progress and differences in terms of the availability of information through the Freedom of Information Act, but a lot of work remains to be done for us to get to the position where we feel that information is now widely available to citizens. Also, one of the current challenges is how do we use the available technologies to enable access to information? Because, as I said, when all of this started, the current technological environment did not exist. So you basically were talking about information in hard copies being kept in files and so on. Now we're talking about how do you digitize all of this information that is held by government such that if somebody is asking for information, the person is based in Maiduguri, Calabar, or wherever, that information can be transmitted from Abuja quite easily without difficulty. Our government has been slow in the uptake of digitization and use of modern technologies, but we hope that ultimately we will get there.
As we wrap up our conversation, Mr. Ojo, what is your vision for the future of media freedom and access of information in Nigeria? I mean, how can individuals contribute to this cause?
So, in the current age, we're all talking about knowledge societies where people make money because of the knowledge they have, because of the information in their heads, and so on. But unfortunately, in our part of the world, and I'm talking broadly of Africa, but also in Nigeria, the level of ignorance, the level of illiteracy is quite significant. And we need to break down those barriers if our populations are going to be able to compete around the world. So it's important to make people realize the value of information, even the monetary value, if I may put it that way, of data and so on. So once people begin to realize that, then I think it will change people's thinking into understanding that the more knowledgeable you are, the better chance you have of even making it financially and so on. And that would inspire people to try and improve their knowledge, to seek out information. And the media is really at the center of all of that, because when you're talking about public enlightenment, the media remains the most viable tool for ensuring public enlightenment, for ensuring that millions of our populations get the information they need to make decisions in their lives. So it's absolutely important that we create an environment where journalists can gather information freely, can disseminate information freely, and that people have the possibility and ability to access the information and utilize it for whatever purposes they wish, whether it's making personal decisions, professional decisions, business decisions, or decisions in terms of governance, who they elect to lead them, and so on. So information is fundamental to our lives. It is really everything, and we need to bring about that environment where people can have information, where journalists can, continue to be purveyors of information.
Thank you, Mr. Ojo, for sharing your valuable perspective, and it has been an enlightening conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us on today's special episode of Writing Theatre. Remember, this conversation does not end here. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Stay informed, stay engaged. Until next time, bye.